I could succeed in doing something. I'm a product of what if. So I think that it's really difficult for me to pinpoint. I'd probably just go back to the beginning.
The real story behind Dave Kindig and Kindig-It Design. To fans of Bitchin Rides, Dave Kindig looked like the calm center of every storm, a designer who could take a wrecked, forgotten car and turn it into something that looked almost unreal by the time the cameras stopped rolling. What the show never had time to cover was everything happening around those builds. A business almost lost to an investor dispute, a multi-year copyright lawsuit, a customer conflict that turned into fraud allegations, and the eventual end of the TV show itself. None of it was a secret exactly. It just never made the episode cut. Here's what actually happened, based on what's been publicly reported. A self-taught start in a small garage. Long before anyone in television knew his name, Dave Kindig was just someone obsessed with shaping metal into something more than transportation. Where other people looked at a car and saw a way to get from one place to another, he saw potential for reinvention. He didn't come up through a formal path. There was no elite design school, no established automotive program. What he had instead was instinct, curiosity, and a willingness to learn by doing. He started Kindig-It Design in Salt Lake City as a self-taught custom car designer, working out of a small, modest garage. The early years weren't polished or predictable. Space was tight, and every project demanded more effort than money alone could fix. But what the shop lacked in comfort, it made up for in focus. Every car that came through mattered, because each one was a chance to prove what was possible. Local car enthusiasts started noticing something different in the work. The attention to detail stood out, and the designs were clean and carefully balanced. As Kindig-It Design's reputation grew, so did the size of the projects. What began as local jobs gradually expanded into full restorations and custom transformations that demanded a much higher level of craftsmanship. None of that growth happened overnight. It came from years of repetition, long hours, and a fairly stubborn refusal to lower the bar. Eventually, that consistency pushed the shop past local recognition. Photos of the build started circulating more widely, and the name Kindig-It Design began showing up in bigger circles. That momentum eventually opened the door to something much larger, a television show. Bitchin Rides launched in 2014 on the Motor Trend Network and ran for multiple seasons, becoming one of the channel's flagship automotive shows. It did more than showcase finished vehicles. For the first time, it let viewers see the actual rhythm of the shop itself, the process behind the polish. Over the course of 10 seasons, an estimated 320 cars were reportedly designed and built by Dave Kindig and his crew. By the time Kindig-It Design became a household name in automotive television, the journey behind it had already been a long one, built step by step with no real shortcuts. But just as everything seemed to be lining up, the first real cracks in the business began appearing in places viewers never got to see. The fight to keep his own company. To the outside world, Kindig-It Design looked like a straightforward success story. Better work, growing attention, a shop starting to draw eyes beyond Utah. Behind that momentum, though, the business itself was still fragile, and early decisions about funding and control eventually turned into a conflict serious enough to threaten the whole operation. At the time, Dave was still trying to turn a passion project into a sustainable company. An outside investor group reportedly put in around $120,000 to help the business grow. At first, it looked like exactly the kind of support that would push things forward. But tension started building around who actually controlled the company and how that investment was being managed. According to accounts from the period, disagreements escalated quickly, and access to financial records and day-to-day operations became part of the dispute. At one point, the situation reportedly reached a breaking point where Dave and his team were removed from the shop entirely, losing control of both the physical workspace and the daily operations they'd built from nothing. What started as a disagreement over business terms escalated into something bigger, a fight over ownership and the future identity of the company itself. For someone who'd built everything from the ground up, that was a direct challenge to everything he thought he'd secured. Losing access to the space where his own work lived changed things instantly. But instead of walking away, he chose to fight. With limited resources and mounting pressure, he borrowed money and hired legal representation, with no guarantee it would work, only the possibility of reclaiming what he'd already built. The legal fight that followed wasn't quick or simple. It involved negotiations and the difficult task of proving, in a legal sense, what the business actually represented and who had the right to run it. During that stretch, everything slowed down. Instead of builds and design sketches, the shop's energy went into paperwork and legal strategy. The same drive that once went into shaping cars was now being spent protecting the company that made them. There was no clear timeline for how or when it would resolve, and every decision carried weight, since the outcome would determine whether Kindig-It Design continued under its original vision or got pulled in a completely different direction. Eventually, through sustained effort and legal action, control of the company was secured back under Dave's direction. The exact details of the resolution weren't widely publicized, but the outcome was clear enough. Kindig-It Design kept going under the person who'd started it. That wasn't the end of the legal battles, though. In 2014, Dave filed a copyright and patent infringement lawsuit against a company called Creative Controls, alleging they had illegally copied his custom design handbrakes and used photos from the Kindig-It Design website to sell knockoff versions. The case turned into a complex jurisdictional battle that moved through federal court and dragged on for several years, pulling significant time and attention away from the business. It finally ended in July 2017 through a mutual settlement, not a dramatic courtroom verdict, but a resolution that reflected just how seriously design ownership was being taken in the custom automotive world by that point. That fight left a mark. The shop survived it, but it didn't quite go back to feeling the way it had before. And even after winning that battle, Dave would find out it wasn't the last one waiting for him. When the cameras stopped rolling, for years, Bitchin Rides ran on a dependable rhythm. A customer shows up with a vision, the team tears the car apart, and something entirely new comes together by the end of the episode. The editing made it look continuous, like the work never paused and everything always landed on schedule. That formula worked for a long time, and it helped turn Kindig-It Design into one of the most recognized names in custom car television. But behind the broadcast schedule, the industry the show depended on was already shifting. Motor Trend, which had become a home for automotive reality programming, went through corporate restructuring under Warner Bros. Discovery. As the broader media landscape moved towards streaming and production costs climbed, production-heavy shows like Custom Car Series stopped being a priority. Motor Trend Plus was eventually shut down, and the ecosystem that had supported long-form automotive television started to shrink. For viewers, that just looked like a show slowing down and quietly ending its run. Inside the industry, it marked the close of an era where builds like these could hold that kind of long-term television real estate. As that shift was playing out, a separate and more complicated story was unfolding off-screen. In 2022, a legal dispute emerged involving Kindig-It Design and a group of clients connected to a custom build centered on a 1974 Dodge Charger. Reports described a large group behind the commission. Some accounts put it at more than 30 individuals, with the project reportedly valued around $670,000, and the group having contributed over $230,000 in upfront payments to get the work started. Over time, frustration reportedly grew among the clients over extended delays and limited updates on progress. The dispute escalated into a legal matter, with allegations of breach of contract and fraud raised against the shop. Kindig-It Design, for its part, maintained that the delays came from supply chain disruptions and the sheer complexity of large-scale custom fabrication during that period, not from any intent to defraud anyone. From the plaintiff's side, the issue went beyond simple timing. It was about the gap between what had been promised and what had actually been delivered, a high-value custom build commissioned around a shared vision, where updates got vaguer and timelines stretched further than expected. From the shop side, the COVID-era supply chain crunch had created delays across entire industries, especially ones that depended on rare parts, international shipping, and specialty fabrication materials. Custom car building doesn't run on fixed manufacturing timelines to begin with. Every project depends on sourcing, fabrication, design revisions, and coordination between multiple specialists. And according to the defense, those factors played a major role in slowing the Dodge Charger project down. As the legal process moved forward, it became part of a broader shift in how the business was being discussed publicly. What had once been defined almost entirely by television reveals was now also being talked about in terms of contracts, expectations, and disputes over long-running projects. Around the same time, the television chapter that had made the shop internationally recognizable came to a natural close, not because of any single dramatic event, but as part of the same industry-wide changes. Network restructuring, platform shutdowns, and the rising cost of producing high-end automotive content at that scale. The visibility that once came from weekly TV exposure began to fade, leaving behind a reputation built over years of public builds, now existing outside the constant cycle of broadcast storytelling. What the shop looks like today. When Bitchin Rides stepped away from its long television run, work inside Kindig-It Design didn't stop. The cameras leaving changed how the world saw the shop. It didn't change what happened inside it. Kindig-It Design is still fully active in Salt Lake City, Utah, running as a complete custom fabrication and restoration facility. The same process still plays out every day. Cars arrive in rough or incomplete condition and move through design, fabrication, bodywork, paint, and final assembly until they come out as fully customized builds. The structure of the shop stayed consistent even as its public visibility changed. Dave remains deeply involved in the creative direction of the business. His role still centers on design. He sketches concepts, works out proportions, and sets the visual direction for major projects before fabrication even begins. It's been his passion from the beginning, and by his own account, that hasn't changed. Every build's identity still starts from his design approach, which leans heavily on clean lines, balanced proportions, and a modern take on classic forms. He also continues working on high-end custom restorations and full one-off builds, projects that often involve completely disassembling and reconstructing classic vehicles, blending original styling with updated engineering and custom fabrication. Each one requires long planning stages and constant back and forth between design and fabrication teams, with Dave still involved in the key decisions throughout. The way the shop shares its work has changed since the TV era ended. Instead of structured episodes built around a network schedule, updates now come through digital platforms tied directly to the business. Kindig-It Design and its media channels show shop activity, progress, and finished builds straight to viewers, without needing the format of episodic television, a shift from produced storytelling toward more real-time visibility into the shop. Demand for the shop's work hasn't disappeared without the show either. Kindig-It Design continues to attract clients from across the United States and internationally, many of them commissioning fully custom builds shaped around personal ideas rather than standard restorations. The reputation built during the Bitchin Rides years still brings both attention and high expectations to every new project. Dave also stays connected to the wider custom automotive community, particularly through major industry events like SEMA, where his work is still recognized for its design consistency and attention to detail, an influence that shows up across modern custom builds, particularly in how other builders think about proportions, finish quality, and overall design flow. To Dave, it's still work, but by all accounts it hasn't stopped feeling like purpose. Every day is spent inside the shop he built his life around, surrounded by the people closest to him, his wife, Charity, his daughter, Bailey, and his son, Drew, all still part of the business. Over time, the shop's team has become part of that same circle too, creating an environment where the work and the people doing it are closely tied together. Looking back, strip away the polished TV reveals, and Dave Kindig's story looks a lot more like most real success stories actually look. A self-taught craftsman who nearly lost his own company to an investor dispute, spent years in a federal copyright fight to protect his designs, weathered a public fraud allegation tied to supply chain chaos nobody could fully control, and watched the TV platform that made him famous disappear for reasons that had nothing to do with him, all while still showing up to design cars every single day. The spotlight changed. The work didn't. What's left after all of it is a shop still running in Salt Lake City, still building cars from scratch, still shaped by the same design philosophy that got it noticed in the first place, just without a camera crew documenting the process anymore.